What's up, guys? It's Ray back with another video. This time we're talking about how when most people think about investing in the One Piece TCG, they immediately focus on Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. And that totally makes sense. They're the core faces of the Strawhats. But if you've actually watched the entire anime and you kind of understand where the story is going, there are several other characters that I believe are still super undervalued from a long-term collector perspective. So, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the characters that I believe are underrated, overlooked, and have asymmetric upside. Not because of hype, but because of narrative importance, future relevance, and long-term cultural staying power. So, with all of that said, let's jump right into it. As per usual, I have some notes here. And again, kicking it off with the big three thesis. So, the big three, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, are typically always in high demand. These cards have a ton of supply, but again, the demand outweighs that supply. They're the big three. Poll data proves this. I think this was released by Crunchyroll, maybe another source, but I pulled this from Crunchyroll. This is the popularity contest poll that was done. And it is kind of common knowledge that Luffy, Zoro, and Nami are the big three, but this just confirms it. And some of the underrated characters we're going to be talking about in this video are on this list within this top 100. So just to wrap this section up, these are solid holds if you have cards from the big three. They're a good base for your portfolio, especially if the supply of the particular card you hold is low. But in this video, we're talking about how we can find some opportunities in the not so obvious plays. So with that said, once again, what makes a character investable? We've talked about some of these components on the channel. You want to have filters when making buying decisions. And the 5 I have listed here include narrative importance. So when we're talking about speculative plays, one of those would be betting on the future. So where we think the story is heading, what characters we think are going to be featured more in the live action. Those are examples of narrative importance. And then screen time is a big factor, lore significance. And then another big one is emotional attachment from fans. That's a huge component in terms of when people make buying decisions. They typically buy emotionally, not necessarily logically, but that's the purpose of this channel, is to kind of combine your emotions and logic, and with an emphasis on the logic to make better investment in buying decisions. So 4th up, unique power or mystique. That's another factor here. It kind of plays off of certain characters that we're going to be talking about. And then limited high quality card supply. That's an obvious one. You want cards in low supply. Use these filters when making buying decisions, and you have a good starting point. Now let's talk about the 8 undervalued characters. So you can kind of see them on the left here. We're going to go through each of them. First up, Sanji. This one's kind of surprising because everyone knows he's a top 5 character consistently. He is one of the wings of the captain. He's a core member of the Straw Hats, has a huge fan base, and in my opinion is underappreciated relative to his overall importance. So we'll take a look at a few cards before moving on to Nico Robin. And the investment angle, there's just going to be a lot of emotional demand, and there should be long-term loyalty demand for Sanji. So jumping into a few of his cards here, I know he has an SP and OP 11, but let me just look up Sanji. What's this one running at right now? Looks to be about 175. Not too bad. But we'll do a little search here. Sanj. So this manga is huge from PRBO2. It'd be great to pull that one of these days. Only one manga here. We have these tournament cards, and then it looks like the biggest SP is that one from OP11. So the biggest Sanji SP is under $200. I do think long-term that is an underrated analysis. Like, I do think this card will get higher than that, but we're in the middle of a market slowdown, as we've hinted on in previous videos. And I don't know when it's going to end. I don't have a crystal ball, but if you pick a specific like price that you would buy a card under and you wait for that, then you strike when that occurs. So if, let's say I wanted to say, I think this card's going to be worth more. Once it goes under 150, I'm going to start DCAing into this card and pick up a few copies. So that's your trigger point. That's your trigger price. That's a great way to implement patience and really, kind of go with a time-based approach, or go with a price-based approach, which essentially combines a time-based approach because you're waiting for it to go under a specific price. There is another Sanji SP here from Royal Blood that people like. I'm not a huge fan, but this card is around 140. Not a ton of listings, but again, Sanji, huge character in the show. Not a lot of cards in general that are worth a lot. Like, I do have this one. This is a really cool promo card. What's the price here? This used to be like 50, 124. Not a ton of supplies, so make your own evaluation of this one, but dope looking card. And then finally, I have a few of these. This is a really cool, underrated Romance Dawn card. Come on, OP01 Sanji. The card looks sick, and it's $50, and it's from OP01. So take that for what it's worth. Let's move on to the next character, Nico Robin. Another underrated character. I know you're probably thinking, like, it's another huge character. How are they underrated? Well, I have a few reasons why. Nico Robin is... So, first of all, in the One Piece TCG, there's not a lot of Nico Robin cards compared to, like, Boa or Nami. It's actually pretty ridiculous. But she is critical to the Void Century, so that's a key part of the show. And then Miss All Sunday is the alternate name that you see on a lot of cards. This kind of presents an opportunity for people that aren't keen to the show, where you can pick up these cards knowing the cat's kind of out of the bag. People know about the Miss All Sunday SP from OP06, but, apply this to other characters too. These alt names are kind of opportunities because people aren't searching for them if they haven't seen the show. But the investment angle on Nico Robin, again, another big fan base, and she's about to be introduced into the live action. So we'll take a look at some Nico Robin cards for just a minute, and then we'll move on to Shanks here. I'm just going to search Nico Robin, and then we'll search Miss All Sunday as well. But taking a look here, this SP from EBO3 is going to run up big time. This will probably be the leading SP. And what else? We're filtering high to low in terms of the price. There's some cool promo cards. I like this one a lot. I have a couple of these. What else are we looking for here? This one is really cool. The full art. Nico Robin. This is a hit from PRBO 1, I believe. Yep. So $30. Not too bad. And then another cool promo card here, the Gift Collection 2023. Then I like this one a lot right here, the full art from Starter Deck 29, which I still think Starter Deck 29 is kind of underrated, but it's just, there's so much supply. Like, I think it's because it came on the back of the huge boom that we had. and just the timing of its release, people listed a ton of cards when this dropped. So you could see this Nami card, which is, it's got to be underrated here at $20, but there's 120 listings. And you can see that for the rest of these cards. But all right, let's look up Miss All Sunday, and then we'll move on to Shanks. So we have a few more cards now that OP14 dropped. This is the most valuable SP. If we're not counting the one from EBO3. Again, since this was an older set, there's not many listings. But 375, compare that to some Nami SPs around 1K. You could say that it's still a little undervalued. And then some of the older cards here, this is a cool one, just an alt art. Not really into the alt arts these days, but probably not a ton of supply. It's an older set, cool looking card. You could pick it up for $35. All right, let's move on to Shanks. So another underrated character. Reasons why. He's kind of got a mythical presence. So the limited appearances he has in the show increase his aura, and he's got a decent sized fan base. So we know he's one of the strongest characters in the show. That's why people love him. And he's obviously going to be important to the end game. But let's take a look at the cards, and we'll see if he's experiencing some dips in terms of the current market slowdown. Save the Manga from A Romance Dawn. I've always thought this was underrated. People figured it out, and now this. I was seeing this card at shows for $1,000 to $1,200 last year. This is run up like crazy. The Gold and Silver from OP13, very cool card. It's going to get reprinted, but these are higher end cards, so the opportunity, some of these higher end cards haven't really moved a lot in price in terms of reacting to the overall dip. But that's why I recommend getting the higher end cards, because a good amount of them will hold value and not be exposed to volatility like the lower end cards. Shanks might not be super underrated right now, to be honest. Maybe grab a couple SPs or promos, but we'll keep it rolling. The best SP here, you got the wanted poster here, and this SP is what? $270. So not super underrated, but could be a good pickup if you like the character and have a long-term thesis for the character. All right, moving on. Nefeltari Vivi. Reasons why she is underrated. She was featured in the Alabasta arc, one of the best arcs of the show, in my opinion. Hits on the Will of D, which is going to be important for the show later on. She has increasing endgame relevance because of just everything we've seen recently in the show. And the investment angle is she's a female character. And she hasn't really run up super hard in price. I'm going to double check that real quick. But let's take a quick look at some VV cards, and then we'll keep it pushing with Enel. So let's see VV, where we at? So filtering from high to low, there's a lot of tournament cards that are very valuable. We got some leader cards up here. Got some alt arts. I think there's going to be an SP in EBO3. So that should be, if you can get that at a good price, that should be a great card to pick up. In terms of a low supply one, you could find some of these tournament cards or promo cards with low supply. That might be the best play on VV. But not a lot of like total cards like this. There's only Oh, there's the SP. Yeah, there's pretty much, this is going to be the best one here soon, but there's not a lot of cards here. And that's what I'm talking about. Like the big three have pages and pages of cards, but some of these like Vivi and Robin don't have as much, like they don't have as many individual cards to choose from, which automatically makes the supply lower. Okay, let's keep it pushing with Enel. So let's see where Enel is on this top 100 list. We have Enel at 35. So reasons why Enel could be undervalued. Again, none of this is financial advice. I'm just kind of speculating on what I think. This is kind of opinion based because I've seen the whole show, but I'm also applying filters and principles to justify my opinions. Again, reasons why: he's featured in the Sky Island arc, which is one of the best arcs. He's got this kind of space lore going for him, which is, I'm not really going to talk about just so I don't ruin any spoilers for anybody. He's referenced in the mural from the Elbaf arc. So future relevance, definitely possible. He's got one of the coolest abilities in the show. He's got a Logia type Devil Fruit, which gives him the power of lightning, the Goro Goro no Mi. So insanely OP in terms of his power. Was huge early on in the show. A lot of these new people watching the show for the first time, it's one of the earlier arcs, so they're going to get introduced to him first. He's got like an invincible mystique, which is pretty cool. Not a lot of cards out there. We're going to take a look at the OPO5 SP. And also there's an upcoming manga of Enel. So this is going to increase the overall awareness for Enel. So we can speculate on that and pick up some of his other cards in the meantime. Again, he's a cult character, high uniqueness with his power, and high ceiling if reintroduced to the show and when this manga comes into play. So let's pop in and take a quick look at the Enel SP. Look, only one page of cards. So kind of a similar theme to Robin and Vivi. But this SP looks to be the number one at the moment. There's like no listings on this one from EBO2. Yeah, 900 is the only available one. The most recent sale was 650. I didn't even notice how high that went up. And then you have this SP, which is the coolest looking one in my opinion. You could pick this up. You could pick up 4 of them for $200 a piece. You know, get them graded. I think it's probably pretty good long term. Again, not financial advice. There's a few more listings than there used to be on this card now, but only 3 pages, it looks like. Again, earlier set, OPO5. It's going to be more difficult to find this card in the wild, and a lot of people will be holding on to it, in my opinion. After that, you got a Gold Dawn, and then it kind of just drops off after that. There's like 3 cards to choose from what I'm seeing right here. All right, Blackbeard. The first manga card I ever pulled. So I'm partly shilling my bags on this one, but we're going to get into some reasons why he's obviously going to be super relevant in the show. So he's going to be in the end game. He's one of the biggest villains. He's the only character with 2 devil fruits. He's got a lot of screen time, right? Which makes him one of the biggest villains. He gave Shanks his scar, so he's got a lot of lore there, and we still don't really know fully how that happened. His power is still not fully revealed. I could get into some spoilers with that one, but I'll skip over that. And then future narrative impact and screen time is pretty big. So Blackbeard, let's look at some cards here. I think I might have to search for Teach. I like this manga, again, not because I pulled it, but because these OP09, these mangas, there's 5 of them. So just do the math on how many cases it would take to pull the specific manga you're targeting. It's extremely difficult. So I think all 5 of these are super great long-term investments if you can get them cheap. And same with the SPs. This set is cracked out. All right, let's move on to Shirahoshi. So we have 2 left here, and then I'll wrap it up with my conclusion, some points to keep in mind. Shirahoshi, this is kind of just a crazy one. She is the ancient weapon Poseidon in One Piece, so that's going to be important in the end game of the show. She possesses the inherited ability to communicate with and command the massive sea kings. So a lot of potential in the future of the show for her. She was featured in the Fishman Island arc. And yeah, another female character. The scarcity of high-end cards is another factor. So we're going to take a look at the OP11 SP, which might be one of the coolest SPs from OP11 because of its uniqueness. So let's pop in here. Shirahoshi. Yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. You got a Championship 2024 online card that looks like it's in the leading position here. But after that, I wouldn't really touch many of these. I didn't know there was a gold stamped one here. Oh, that's it's a release event card. There's some promo cards that you could pick up if you like the art. But if you want to concentrate liquidity, I think this SP is a good pickup. Same with this Gold Dawn, just because of the low supply. We're sitting at, wow, so this one actually held its base and actually went up in price. I didn't even realize that. There is a ton of listings now, so you could get your hands on a lot of supply if you wanted to, if you think this is going to double. Right now, as of February 19th, 2026, this card is 128. We'll take a look back later this year and see where it's at. But recent sales even at 150. Dang. I kind of bought this card after it pumped for $100, but it looks like it's still climbing up there. So, all right, that's Shirahoshi. Again, you can see how that one stands out amongst these SPs. I have all of these SPs, and they all kind of look similar, except for Shirahoshi. When you actually see this card in person, it looks fantastic. Gotta love OP11. All right. Last character, Monkey D. Dragon. Luffy's father. A lot of mystery around Dragon. He's the leader of the Revolutionary Army. He really doesn't have a lot of screen time, which he has like such little screen time. It actually kind of hurts my thesis on this. But he could be potentially one of the most powerful characters in the entire show. And I think there's some upside if he's featured in the endgame, if he's featured in future arcs. So there's a lot of mystery around Dragon, but this actually potentially could appeal to investors and collectors. And we'll look at what cards Dragon has here, and we'll wrap it up with my conclusion here. I hope this video is bringing you value. I like talking about topics like this. I like giving you my thesis on different cards. I've seen the whole show, so if you're finding value, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to run this up to 1K subscribers, and then we're going to start doing giveaways. We'll just type in a Monkey Dragon. All right. Yeah, look how little individual cards there are for Dragon. You don't really want any of these, in my opinion, except for the first 2 here. So 3 listings for the, what is this, EBO2? Yeah, EBO2 card. These EB sets, man, just there's no supply left. They're going to print more EBO3 in case you haven't heard, so monitor that. But EBO1 and EBO2, it's just very difficult to find supply of individual cards. But this SP is fire. Again, a ton of SPs from this set, so to pull this specific SP from OP09, it's going to be very difficult. Great looking card. This is one of the coolest pickups, in my opinion. If you can get it cheap. This also held its base and kept going up in price, which is actually a good sign, like long term. But you're kind of running out of time to pick this up under 300. Not a lot of listings. But still, just because of the rarity and our future thesis on this card, could be a good pickup and could be a great long-term hold, especially if you got it under $200. Okay, and this was under 100, like not that long ago. But you do have to monitor some of these cards. Like I was going into this thinking that some of these would be affected by the market slowdown and dip, but this card doesn't seem to be that affected. But again, with a long-term thesis, I like this one. Okay. That's going to be it for the 8 characters. Again, Sanji, Nico Robin, Shanks, Vivi, Enel, Blackbeard, Shirahoshi, and Dragon. Check those out. And as a reminder, what I'm not saying that these are going to outperform Luffy, Zoro, and Nami cards. I'm not saying to buy all of these. And you don't have to flip these. You really just want to identify long-term narrative potential, fan favorites that are underrated, and low supply on high-end cards. So cards that haven't run up in price yet, but deserve to long-term. That's a great way to find gems. And like I hit on at the beginning of this video, the big 3 creates a solid base for your portfolio, especially if you picked up cards last year and you have those. I don't really like selling my Luffy, Nami, or Zoro cards because they're just always going to be relevant and there's always going to be demand. So if you're trying to get rid of cards, don't dump like your best characters. It's not a great strategy. But again, the mangas and SPs are the premium liquidity, as a reminder. Tournament cards, like we hit on in a past video, great trade tools, low supply of these. Pick up some gold stamp championship cards, get them graded, flip them into bigger cards. It's a great strat. And then promo cards, dig for some of those hidden gems. You do have to search sometimes pretty heavy for promo cards. So it presents an opportunity because they're not just like on the main page. Like if I just go into OP12, you're not going to see promo cards here. You're just going to see the cards in this set, and these all get the most eyes on them. So you want to be navigating where people necessarily aren't looking. That's the thesis with promo cards. And then the undervalued characters could be asymmetric bets, not financial advice, because this is kind of a more like a higher risk, higher reward play if the thesis plays out for these 8 characters. And my closing remarks is, first off, thanks for tuning in to the video and watching to the end if you're still watching. It's greatly appreciated. I appreciate all the support. Hit that subscribe if you haven't. Not everyone who's watched the videos has subscribed, so definitely smash that button. And just know the story of One Piece is not yet finished. We have a lot of runway. Like, there's going to be so many more sets coming this year, next year, the year after that. I don't think this is going anywhere. We're in a market slowdown, we're in a dip, but look into the future. Practice patience, use logic, make good buying decisions, and just adapt. Like, the story's going to evolve. You know, there's going to be more seasons of the live action. Demand's going to shift. You can use the manga as a look into the future since it's ahead of the anime, and that's a good tip. And then, you know, monitor how these different cultural factors impact character demand and just demand in general. So that's it for this video. Much love. Stay safe out there. And I'll catch you in the next video. I got some cool ideas for future videos. Again, as like the third reminder, once we hit 1K subs, we're going to start running giveaways. It's going to be a lot of fun. And drop a comment if you like this video. Drop a like, subscribe. Once again, this has been Ray with Zoro TCG Vault. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.